Welcome back to this continued video series where we talk about media tour questions with context like the live letter, the fact that the expansion was delayed, the patch notes. As we sit in the window of time between Shadowbringers and Endwalkers when I'm recording these, we have, as of this minute, 11 hours, 3 minutes, and 30 seconds left until I will be in Endwalker content. And so I look forward to going through this. Future features is our next topic. I will say that as I reference people here, Sly and Afro asked questions, Mioni and Shinpai asked questions, Jesse and JP asked questions, Annie and Eduardo asked questions, and so I'm not necessarily giving the question to the exact credit. I am noting in the text here where I watched the video or found the press text on what these interview questions were. I have grouped them to the best of my ability in categories so that we can use them to expand on each other, because sometimes somebody asks a question, somebody else asks a similar question, and we can dive deeper into that topic by putting them together. So let us start with Gamer Escape, saying that you mentioned before that there would be more dungeons that use the trust system from 6.1 and beyond. And so the trust system is something that we want to be aware of kind of what's going on with that. I know the trust system is something that we would love to have a lot more support from. I personally would love to see it take over Praetorium and Castrum as the new player experience. And so, talking about the trust system, Yoshibi says if you go into a dungeon with a healer trust and you cast Living Dead, the healer will actually recover your health. They've been updated so they even evade more of the attacks, and they can come back and still finish their combo. And so but most importantly, within technical questions, talking about what trust can be used for, is that moving forward, we have updated the in-house tool to design it to being something that is more general use. It used to be something that required a very high-level designer to be able to implement the trust, that restricted the rate at which they could add trust support. And so this will allow it to be considered on a larger scale or a more general basis. He would love to sit down and talk about what he is exactly envisioning in this way and what their plans are, but he's going to ask that you wait a little bit longer at this time. Now, Mioni is going to follow that up by raising the stakes. Remember, these interviews were not aware of each other, and saying, well, could we have it go into alliance raids? Is that something we could do? And Yoshibi said, alliance raids? You want 23 trusts? 23 NPCs? I mean, I'll admit that with 6.0, we did expand what the trust can do internally, but alliance raids is still well beyond what it can do. The system before required very advanced members of the team to use it, and they've made it easier so that more designers will have access to it on the team. There are some dungeons that are not supported, and while he can give you details when you play through the game where you would see and appreciate the advancements, we've actually made this type of feature something that we can have for trust, and there will be times that you become aware as you play through Endwalker what these advancements are. So that is exciting. I am looking forward to finding out what these moments are. I know sometimes you get into a scenario and you're like, oh, look at these guys. Look at these guys. And they've gotten a lot fancier over the years. Now, Jesse Cox and JP, they've said you've mentioned to making it easier to level alts. How are you going to do that? You just adding more experience? Or is there something special that we're getting going into Endwalker that's going to help us do that? And he said, well, I think what sets us apart as a game is that you can play more than one job on just one character. If we do provide many jobs, then some people are going to feel that they need to level all of them. And we never want that to feel like an obligation. Get through your MSQ on one job is all we want to ask. However, we are seeing that at this point, a player on average caps 4 jobs. We noticed this trend during the Shadowbringer Relic quest. And it seems like more and more people are actually wanting more than one relic. So with people playing multiple jobs, we shifted the experience, and your main scenario quest in Endwalker will cap 1 job And these side quests will be able to be used to fill out the other ones. This is where, as over the last several weeks, you guys have heard me say, what's my plan with leveling for MSQ? And I say I'm going to go through MSQ as a warrior, but I'm going to have my gunbreaker sitting 1 or 2 levels behind, because I don't plan on being disciplined. And if I decide to do a fate or a side quest on my warrior could end up ahead of MSQ. And if I reach the level 90 MSQ quests, because I assume there will be some, and I'm level 90, that's great. But if I reach the level 88 or 89 quests and my warrior's already 90, I don't want to let that experience fall on the ground, because I do want to level all of my jobs. And so I will bring Gunbreaker along for the ride. That way, at that point, hopefully if warrior hits 80 and I'm on the level 80 or 90 and I'm on the level 88 quest, Gunbreaker's sitting there at 88, 89 and can slide in and finish it. And when I get to the 90 quest, I'll switch back to warrior. This question is what informed my decision when I have been talking about what I am maining. Now, Mione talked about the achievement pane. This is the first time we started to hear about that. It is in the full patch notes. You can go see the pictures of it. But Mione asked a question all the way back in October. The achievement pane was present in the Mediator build, but it was very, very bare bones. And so he said, can you tell us a little more about that? Can you elaborate? And Yoshi said, this is actually the result of the last 2 or 3 years. He had wanted to incorporate the changes, but he has wanted some of this all the way back as far as ARR. And so in ARR, the product was quite rushed and was mostly just a list. And thinking about the genre that each type of thing goes in. It's just a series of lists, which has always been my complaint. And he said that I want them to be closer to something that you experience more day to day. Day to day is a translation that was given to me later. In the Mione and Senpai video, it actually says daily life, which alarmed me. It's day to day, just as you just log in, something you just do. And so you would just log in and it would help you track kind of goals and see this as your journey. And so this is something that he wants to help kind of inform and trickle down from that point. Now, from here, we're going to go into the Sly and Afro. What I will tell you about the Sly and Afro questions is they probably represent a great deal of people who have not done a lot of coverage for this game recently, because these are going to be a series of questions that we actually already have information to. So as you see Sly and Afro in my coverage here, just be aware that my answers are going to include a lot of past information in addition to whatever Yoshi P answers to them, because actually they ask a lot of things that those of us that spend way too much time reading about this game are aware of, but to everybody that's just trying to enjoy 14, I can understand why maybe they didn't know this stuff. So with data center visit, are we going to be able to visit any server? And, you know, how will that work with things like whispers? We're going to do this one first. Am I going to be able to whisper across different servers? How does DC visit work as far as when data center travel gets here? DC Visit, Yoshi P described this as a country. Aether and Primal are 2 separate countries. And within the same country, it's not hard to drive and commute. No big deal. And so that is what your whispers are when you are within your data center, when you're server visiting. And so worlds inside of a data center are no big deal communicating. But with Visit, you need to pick your character up and go to another country. So while you're there, you won't be able to easily communicate back with your home world or any of the other worlds on your data center, but you will instead be able to communicate very easily with the people on that data center. We have already seen a screenshot of how this works. When you go to start the game, before the character select screen on the start playing, there's the main screen that plays the Shadowbringers, oh, and will now play Endwalker the next time I boot up my client. That screen has a data center line when they showed the screenshot. You will click that, and it's effectively a temporary server transfer. And you will go, you will live over there. You won't be able to see Party Finder listings from your own world. You won't be able to interact with retainers. And then you will log all the way out and transfer all the way back again. So it is, it is much more separate because the servers were not really designed to talk to each other, as opposed to the worlds are already operating within one data center. They were already on one cluster for things like instance servers and stuff like that anyway, so they have an easier time spanning the gaps for some features and not others. So when this rolls out, keep in mind, you're not going to be able to like see the party finder on Primal while you're on Aether. You're going to have to hop out. So things like Discords and stuff will probably have communities to help organize. This is where we're going to meet for this various hunt train and all of that. Now, based around that, we're going to jump back up a question here. And currently, we can already visit other servers. But within our party finder, the map parties don't make it really easy to notify server. And so if I have a cross-world party finder, because I want to let anybody join my map party, but we're all going to be running the maps, which take place in a physical location on a specific server, there's no way to communicate that outside of the notes section. And so is there something we could get? Like we got the like notify what zone I want to be in and what classes I want. Can you make that something where I could have an optional drop down to say like, hey, I'm willing to recruit anybody from any server, but I want them to come play on my server. Would also probably be useful for things like RP. And he said that this question was a huge back and forth thing. It was a giant misunderstanding. So they said the servers can't see each other. You can't interact with party finders from other servers if it's a specific to a server. So like they weren't super understanding what he was asking, but that it does not allow for that indication. But already it's very difficult for them to have servers communicate with each other any cleaner than they can now. So that drop down would have to be basically unenforceable, is what it sounds like. And as a note, they just want you to know that this is going to get worse with Data Center because you're not even going to be able to see Party Finder or Duty Finder across. We're not going to be using Duty Finder. So if you're playing with somebody from Primal while you're on Aether in your roulette, they transferred over to join your roulette. They came here intentionally. Keep in mind that with Data Center Visit, they did say when it is added to the game that it will start out region locked and they would like to move it to worldwide later. So don't assume that EU characters and NA characters will be playing together on day one. It'll be Primal and Aether characters testing that out on day one. So this was two questions that were a lot about the Data Center Visit and the technology behind how these work. The timeline on those is 6.1 or later. Remember that there's a lot of things later. So if it doesn't make 6.1, it doesn't make it. They are still targeting 6.1 for Oceanic Data Center and actually are updating when you choose a data center. That map will be a little more zoomed out now to show the place for it. The graphic will have already been changed, even though we can't yet select those. When that does launch, as a reminder, people will have free transfers to it. So the affected people in those regions will hopefully be able to transfer their characters over if they choose to. So Annie and Eduardo says, as a collector, will things like the achievement UI affect things like the way the crafting and gathering and fishing logs work, as well as the ability to easier see mounts and minion journals as all the things that I don't have, right? And so this is coming from Annie as a WoW player. How do I easier track things? And he said, well, the achievement UI is something that he asked them to do a while back because he thinks of it as a collection feature and actually thinks that when you finish something like your crafting log, it'll trigger an achievement. So the achievement is kind of the parent here and it'll all trickle down from there. And so leaving it as just a list didn't feel right. So he wanted it to be redone from the ground up. As a result, there won't be any big changes to crafting and gathering logs per se, but updates to the usability of like the whole system are something they'll talk about moving forward, but he wanted to start with the achievements first. He does think the fishing log is something that they could look more at. I think they hadn't really thought about it. With knowing now that we have a spearfishing minigame, and seeing everything that's going on with the game, I think they also wanted to be very careful. They couldn't show off the achievement pane at the last live letter because they didn't want to accidentally show off achievements that would be spoilery. So it is something that I really look forward to getting into when the servers go live. As of this recording, the servers go live in 10 hours, 48 minutes, and 47 seconds. Annie and Eduardo, friend and free company list. Can we get some search features? This is a social question. Can we get some search features or some filters? It'd be nice to be able to put notes on people's names. This is the only question that asks about friends and features. He has talked about this in the past, they have trouble wanting to work on it because the number of people that they believe are being hampered by it is not everybody. And they struggle because the people that they hear from most are like content creators and stuff because they get to do interviews. And in the past, he's kind of implied, very kindly, that the problems that content creators have at the social, he has trouble telling, like, is that a problem that everybody else is having? Or is that just because you have a lot more friends than the average person? So when they go to pull data, they're having trouble seeing if the data is really telling them of the same problems that, you know, a content creator who's like, my friends list is full. Okay, yeah, but you're live in front of thousands of people. That's not exactly the same thing. But then she also went on and this was her last question. So she also went on and said, I want to talk about why red hair in the game is not more red. So they said one more question. She asked 2 questions. So there's, let's see, hair. That's it. That's the one. Now, he said the social features were made in a rush during A Realm Reborn. So when they look at server traffic data, they want to make sure that they're not applying additional pressure. If anything, they want to lighten it. But they do have plans for this. They would just ask that you be patient. As for the hair, the graphics engine uses what's called deferred rendering. And so that means it draws colors by applying light. And so that by its very nature will keep colors from being oversaturated. And so if they were to try to prepare a new texture that was very bright and vibrant, it would ultimately still be very neutral. And hair also catches the reflection of things around that, but they will look into more saturated options. So 2 questions. And that is everything for future features. Keep in mind that we do have another section a little bit further down about upcoming Endwalker stuff, about things like glamour. I have a lot more sections here. This was just things that I thought the answer was very technical minded, but they were forward looking. So a lot of questions here. A lot of these I think came from a place of like, I don't know exactly how the system works now, and I want to know how the system works moving forward. And so a lot of these answers refer back to the Realm Reborn. So if any of you are new and you do wonder what got us here, why do people refer to that was in a rush during A Realm Reborn, or the phrase spaghetti code, or any of these phrases that we throw around where we continually blame ARR, but then when people say ARR is not as good, some people get very defensive and they're like, I like ARR. If you want to know the journey from 1.0 to now, I would encourage you to go watch the No Clip documentary, because I think that would really help elaborate and give some context, not on specifically these questions, but why the answers are the way they are, why things are limited the way they are, and how we got where we are. It's honestly an incredible journey, and it's a miracle that we got where we are. And I'm excited that at the time that this goes live on YouTube, I will already be in Endwalker. Could not be more thrilled.